But next, North Korea may not officially be on the agenda of the nuclear summit in Seoul, but it is something that's hard for leaders to avoid, especially after Barack Obama's earlier warning to punish Pyongyang for what he described as bad behavior over its planned satellite launch. Artie's Irina Galushka has more on why the US leader's striking a harsh tone.
He arrived to South Korea on the eve of the Nuclear Security Summit and immediately went to the demilitarized zone separating North and South Korea and basically started making his statements there, saying that the regime has nothing to gain from threats or provocations. He also criticized them for so-called bad behavior. And the reason for such harsh rhetoric is the planned satellite launch, which North Korea is hoping to conduct next month. Now, the United States, Japan, and South Korea view this not as a satellite launch, but rather as a missile test, and they're vehemently opposed to it. Of course, the United States, President Obama in particular, seems to have used the sidelines of the Nuclear Security Summit in order to discuss a lot of international issues, but primarily it looks like the U.S. is looking to increase its presence in Asia, particularly in the Asia-Pacific region. If you look at what's going on in South Korea, for example, the base that is being built, which may house U.S. naval ships, and you have to remember that 28,000 U.S. military personnel are already stationed here. There's also plans to put more than 2,500 military personnel in Australia over the next 6 years. So a lot of people are saying that by this harsh criticism of North Korea, the United States is actually showing China that it's still mighty in the region, and it's keeping its presence here in Asia, and that it's also keeping an ever watchful eye on China.
More from Seoul tomorrow with our correspondent. Now, the US president's tried to win support from China to increase pressure on North Korea. Dr. Tim Beale, author and Asia specialist, told us there's nothing legally wrong in what Pyongyang's trying to do.
The Koreans quite correctly, of course, distinguish between a missile and a satellite. This is a satellite launch. I mean, it's interesting. The Americans got through the sanctions on Korea a few years back when the Koreans said they were launching a satellite, and the Americans said, no, this is a missile launch. And that was proved after the event from the trajectory that, in fact, it was a satellite attempt. So there is a clear distinction. The problem is, of course, that a rocket which can launch a satellite is halfway to being a rocket that can launch a missile. There are crucial differences, guidance systems, but most of all, of course, you have to have a warhead, and there's no, we don't know if the Koreans have got that. But the problem from the Americans' point of view is that there is absolutely nothing illegal, wrong about launching a satellite. There are thousands of satellites up in the sky. Why distinguish a North Korean satellite?
Thoughts there of Dr. Tim Beale. Well, as I mentioned, as the two-day nuclear summit progresses, hope you can stay with us here at RT for all the developments from Seoul.
Atomic clouds. Can Iran convince its intentions are honest? Will North Korea enter the fold? The 2012 Nuclear Security Summit.